before leaving, it is my great pleasure to invite to the stage Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Radmila Shekerinska. Please, Shekerinska. The floor is yours. Do you want to stand there? Okay. I will join you in a minute.
Good morning, and it's great to follow this very interesting, very honest, and very open discussion. And it gives me really a great pleasure to be, for the first time, within this building. I remember visiting Norway many years ago. I was still a student, if I remember correctly. And as part of a Norwegian support program towards Central and Eastern Europe, I was invited here as one of the young leaders from the then Social Democratic Youth of Macedonia to join you for a program at Utøya. And it was a transformative experience because going through the many different elements of the Norwegian model, I have been confirmed in my views that politics can be a noble profession, that we can achieve more if we show more solidarity, if we search for the right answers to our joint problems. And I always say that it is because of Norway that I actually became involved very actively and chose politics as my profession. So in my both good and bad days in politics, and my friends here know that there are plenty of both, I do thank and blame Norway for it very often. But let me say, I was invited here to talk about one of the most important challenges and questions of today, and this is how do we see transatlantic relations in the future. And let me share, we have had the beginning of this discussion initially by the Prime Minister and the High Representative, but let me kick up the discussion with a few observations from where I stand in NATO. First, transatlantic relations were, are, and will be a result of hard work, but also shared interests and political will. And this has always been the case. Sometimes it's more visible, sometimes it's less visible, but you need all these elements to make these transatlantic relations work and be productive for all. For over 3/4 of a century, NATO has been able to provide its key goal, and this is to give security for 1 billion people across the alliance. And what is more important, we do agree on what is needed in order to deliver this shared goal. More defense investments, more defense production at a speedier scale, and also more support to Ukraine. And thank you for also raising this issue. It is clear that in this moment we do have the political will to make these three things happen. And I will tell you, last year, more or less this time of the year, I was in Sweden for their security conference. I was also in Vilnius for their snow conference. And if someone would have asked any of us, not just me, any of us there, would it be feasible for all 32 allies to agree not on a 2.5, not on a 3 or 3, on 5% of GDP defense investment pledge, most of us would have said no. Because let us not forget, even in 2025, it was still a challenge to have all allies at 2%, on which we have agreed more than 10 years ago. So still, we did. At the Hague Summit, we have managed to convince all and to have everyone on board to invest up to 5% of GDP until 2035, and this is our direction of travel. If you would have asked us, and even these people who are very active in defense production, will we be able to turn the tide when it comes to scaling up production, speeding up defense production, many people probably would have been also less optimistic. But it is clear that the demand signal that was sent by the political leaders in The Hague, the fact that we have started interacting with defense industry in a regular, predictable, and very open discussion, did change the course. And what we have seen is that the defense industry across the alliance is already picking up pace, producing more firepower. We see this especially when it comes to ammunition, which was a source of great disappointment, that the fact that we couldn't produce not only as much as Russia, but actually 4 times less than Russia. This has changed dramatically in the course of 1 year, and we see this together with adopting latest technologies as a key element to change the developments, to change the curve. So don't get me wrong, we are not naive and we shouldn't be. We still have a lot to do. A commitment to spend and invest more is still commitment. Some of the countries are paving the way towards 5% at a much more ambitious timescale, but some are still taking their time. But it is clear that both leaders and defense industry know that we cannot stick to the old normal. We have to invest in our security because our security is challenged. And within our deterrence, we need to incorporate the defense industry, because if there is one very clear lesson from Ukraine, is that your pace of production and your industry and your innovation are as important as your political will to fight, as your military might and your command and control. We have also been clear about stepping up support to Ukraine. And I'm saying this here in Norway, and I want to stress that it is allies like Norway that have made this possible. By being active on all fronts, not just supporting Ukraine politically, but also supporting humanitarian needs, supporting issues such as energy security, which has become the big crisis now in Ukraine, but also being very clear in supporting them with military means. And I know that in the course of the last now 5th year, we have seen ups and downs, but Norway's commitment was really exemplary. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for pushing also other allies into doing the same. So we have come in a situation in which we see what is happening in Ukraine as also lessons learned of what are the wars of tomorrow. And by having your defense industry supporting them, by having all of us supporting their military capabilities, but also their training, their intelligence, we are actually we are also supporting our own deterrence and defense. And I don't think that we can repeat this message enough. This leads me to my second point, and this is that strong Atlantic relations demand that we sometimes have to work through our differences. And this is where the hard work comes. And I think your Prime Minister was very clear in saying that this is an approach that works. We are democracies. We have debates within our societies. We should not take them for granted. We also have dialogue with different allies. And sometimes, like in history, we have different points of view. And the big advantage is that the DNA of this alliance is about discussing and finding a way out and coming up with a solution that matches our shared interests for security. So we have, as part of this also discussion lately, we have come up with a U-turn when it comes to Arctic security. And several things were already mentioned, but I will just add that it was through the intelligence and the information from allies such as Norway, we have seen that across the Arctic we do see more interest and more presence by Russia. They have created their Arctic Command. They have reopened some old military sites. They are creating new ones, basically deep water ports, but also airfields. They're testing their novel weapons in the Arctic. And this calls for our attention. And it became clear that it was not only Norway, and it was not just our Arctic allies that have the interest to preserve security, stability, and cooperation in the High North. It is in the interest of all NATO allies. And this is why we have agreed that we will do more, without focusing on just one part of the Arctic, but really looking at the Arctic as an area where we have to be strategically present and we have to protect our interests. And we have seen that allies are procuring more capabilities that are appropriate for our presence in the High North. Our troops are exercising in Arctic condition, and this is where Norway comes as a leader. So last October, we opened a new center in Bodø that focuses on these issues, and with the exercise this March, this will be a very clear signal, not only of your contributions, of the importance of the Arctic, but as was mentioned, the importance of transatlantic unity. So, transatlantic relations may be tested, and they are always tested, but we always come up with the alliance being stronger. Which brings me to my third and final observation, that the bond between Europe and North America remains the only really winning way in developing our security in a more dangerous and less predictable world. US security, US troops, US military might is indispensable for European security, but it goes both ways. It is also what Europeans, what we bring to the table, remains relevant from the Arctic to the Atlantic and towards US and Canada's security. So in this way, this is the bond that has kept our two continents together, and this is a bond that has made all of us more secure. For Europe and Canada to step up on defense investment is not a question of choice. It is a question of necessity, and this has been the case for quite some time. But it is true that the time when we could, some would say conveniently, give up on focusing on security and allow the US to deal with it is over. And this is a much more just and more stable arrangement in which not only US, but also Canada and European allies contribute in a meaningful way to our Euro-Atlantic security. This is why when we did our last polls, 81% of allied citizens, on average, throughout the alliance, consider the transatlantic bond as crucial for our shared security. And we have these expectations to take into account, but we also have some lessons, good and bad, from the more than 75 years of history. And this is why we do believe that, especially in challenging times, we will be able to deliver more security, but also more cooperation in a very, very hostile and unpredictable world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for pointing out the importance of the transatlantic bond and how we can strengthen it in